Hello and a warm welcome to this very special programming initiative along the sidelines of the Digital Engineering Awards, brought to you by ISG, L&T Technology Services and CNBC TV18. The last few months have been eventful for more reasons than one. The global economic climate has continued to navigate amid uncertainties that continue to persist, even as AI and sustainability have moved on from being mere watchwords to being actual, tangible goals that companies across the world aspire to reach sooner rather than later. Amid all of this, the US elections have thrown forth a more decisive mandate now than in the last 12 years at the very least. And to speak to us about all this and more, I'm joined by what can only be described as a star panel, which I will introduce one by one. We're joined by Amit, Chadha, MD and CEO at L&T Technology Services. We also have with us Rajeev, Gupta, CFO of the company. Steve Hall is also with us, another familiar face, President of ISG EMEA and Chief AI Officer. We have Vanessa Eriksson, an experienced CDO herself, and of course, founder and chairperson of the board at Girls in Tech Nordics. And last but not the least, Asha Poulose Johnson, Chief Digital Officer of IT at GE Healthcare. Ladies and gentlemen, great to have you with us here along the sidelines of the Digital Engineering Awards. Before we get ahead, let me start with you, Steve. In the light of the recent US elections and the evolving global scenario, what are some of the strategies that companies must adopt to thrive amid these economic uncertainties that we find ourselves in? And how do you see the current economic trends shaping the future of the digital engineering industry?
Yeah, well, first, I'm excited to be here. I mean, the Digital Engineering Awards is such a great evening, great event. So we're really excited to be here, be part of it. I think more than anything, the election brought a lot of stability to the markets. Regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, I think it brought stability, and we needed that. Mm-hmm. You've seen the same issues, though, across the globe. Europe, India, U.S., we all needed that stability.
Right.
But I think we see that. When I look at the agenda, especially kind of the broader view of it, we've got the immigration issues. I think the immigration issues will affect somewhat the H-1Bs and the B-1s and issues. That the market has matured so much from 2016 when the new administration first came in. I think we're ready to settle that, and we know how to deal with that, so that's big. I think when I look at the markets and the investments, we've had 3 to 4 years of really pullback.
All right.
Interest rates, inflation, organizations haven't been spending at the same level.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty positive about what we see in 2025 and what that means. And I think that stability is going to be good for the market and good for the industry.
All right. With that stability and positivity, Amit, I have to ask you, you've been interacting with multiple CEOs across multiple multinational organizations. How do you think these companies are performing amid this uncertainty that continues to persist, these positive green shoots notwithstanding? And more importantly, is there an underlying trend, do you feel, that unifies their experience across geographies like the West, Southeast Asia, Europe? What's that one underlying trend, and how are these companies performing amid the uncertainty?
So if I was to actually summarize and then give you details, 2025 calendar year is supposed to be a lot better than 2024, which was better than 2023. One. Second, if I was to say that some of these election results have kind of set a tone of certainty, at least in the minds of our CXO community for 2025 and the medium term. Now, if I was to dig a little deeper, there are 4 areas that we're seeing clearly a lot more spends discussions happening, or spends being allocated and discussion happening. One of them is a no-brainer is AI and the impact of AI, the usage, the use cases, etc. Second is software-defined everything, right? And basically our clients are trying to move from product manufacturing revenue to service-led revenue. And that comes by servitizing, for the lack of a better word, your products, and therefore comes digital software everything. And we're celebrating digital awards today.
Absolutely.
Right? Third is industrial automation. And you haven't heard the beginning of that yet, but I can tell you that based on what we're hearing on the ground today, there's a lot more that will come up in industrial automation in the next 3 years. And it may be at the beginning of a new hype cycle. And the fourth that we are seeing very clearly is clients, CXOs actually bringing in third parties to come in and not just do consolidation, but actually do transformation with it, because everybody's trying to get ready for delivering 20% more throughput with 30% less staff. And it's a journey.
Absolutely. And on that note, I can't quite help but marvel at the fact that, digital transformation is definitely here to stay. And it's not even a choice that most companies have, but it's a given, especially in the interest of thriving and doing better than what was being done yesterday. In fact, Rajeev, I have to ask you next, given the fact that we're talking so much about digital transformation, as a CFO of a $1 billion plus firm, what do you feel is the role of AI and Gen AI as an extension when it comes to finances and other key business decisions in running such a company?
Sure, Jude. And first of all, I must say it's a pleasure to be here at the Digital Engineering Awards and, of course, to be part of this esteemed panel. Really to reflect on views around AI, in some way it's becoming all-pervasive.
Okay.
And it's touching all walks of life, right? I mean, one can keep on talking in terms of the models that are developing. But if you look at finance, right, there's a lot of use of data. And basically, you become partners in decision making. So if I were to just use some examples, look at predicting, outcomes and drivers that help somewhere get to profitable revenues and growth. Right? That's one area. Second, look at driving faster decision making. So think governance, right? And I'm sure we've all gone through situations where you tend to get layered in decision making. But AI really gives you that ability to make faster decisions. Compliances in a global scenario. Also looking at contracting, right? And a lot of AI is being driven into contracting. And then there are operational aspects in finance. For instance, payables, receivables, all of that delivering, free cash flows.
Right.
So a lot of this, right? And even if I were to go at other functions, look at HR, onboarding, all to really enhance employee experience. If you look at learning and development, building strategic talent for the company, in operations and delivery, use of smart dashboards, use of tools that can enhance productivity. Multiple of this is evolving, and I think this is a start. I feel technology in a way augments the capability of human beings, and I think this is a start to a fascinating thing.
Absolutely. I think
it's going to happen.
The future is probably more exciting today than it ever has been. In fact, Asha, I'm just curious, at GE Healthcare, what are the ways that you are leveraging AI across operations? Rajeev just mentioned a host of areas where you can leverage AI, where you can use it to bring out the optimum best from the company itself. But more importantly, besides just what these areas are, what are some of the major changes that you now see, in the AI or the digital infrastructure of the company once you implement AI and AI adoption gathers momentum?
Yeah, and again, first of all, it's great to be here. See, I look at it from three aspects, right? When you look at a healthcare medtech company like ours, there is the whole clinical aspect where AI is kind of very nascent in healthcare. Healthcare as an industry has been behind. There is a whole operational aspect, which I think we have reached some maturity. This is like, how do you actually leverage all the data that comes from the equipment, drive better optimization of how we serve the hospitals with different equipments and all of that. And then the functional aspect that he talked about. I think the interesting thing is the data that is required for all of these used to be very siloed. Now they're all interplaying with each other. For example, you look at the functional data, you look at the optional data, and you start developing fleet management solutions,
right?
Which are very critical, especially as there is a lot of demand for healthcare in the world and continues to grow. So that drives a lot of both efficiency, but also a lot of new opportunities for creating solutions that did not exist before. And then when it comes to the clinical domain, I think COVID kind of, brought the opportunities which were much slower into mainstream. So the biggest difference that I see is the openness to adoption. Is now, earlier we were saying, okay, who will, people were very much wanting not to use AI, but now everybody wants to be saying, I'm the first one to use it.
Right.
And also, I think the risks of compliance are rising. So a lot of focus on responsible AI in our industry.
And that's why also I said at the start that, it's not so much AI and sustainability being watchwords, but these are actual tangible goals that companies perhaps see closer to the horizon now than ever before. And in fact, speaking of sustainability, if I could bring you in again, Rajeev, if you could just take me through, how do you see the importance of sustainability panning across companies today? And how do you think LTTS is going about promoting sustainability in its operations?
It's an interesting one. I mean, probably I'm going to start with a little bit of how human consumption has increased multifold in the recent years, right? And that's leading to a lot of what you will say rising temperature, melting of glaciers, flood. You can talk about all of those, right? And it continues. And if this continues, I think it's a threat to the existence of humans, right? And that's really, it's important to understand why we need to get to more sustainable ways and practices. To me, today, if you look at corporates, I think they can play a very active role in terms of adopting sustainable practices. So I'll take a few examples. If you look at travel, for instance, right? I mean, can we do responsible traveling? I like the word you use, responsible AI. That's a big thing, right? Can we be responsible in terms of our travel? Can we really adopt sustainable procurement, thereby influencing the vendor ecosystem? To me, there's a lot of deficit in the sustainable capital required for renewable energy and so on and so forth. Can we as corporates actively contribute towards those? These are some of the things that can really help, developing a lot of sustainable ways and practices from here on. There's a lot that can be done. I believe it's a need of the hour. At LTTS, I think first I'd like to thank Amit, because this is a conversation we had some 4 years ago. We have a 6 dimensions framework for decision making. One of those is sustainability. Right? So we really embarked on the journey back in 2020. I think we evolved quite a bit then. From there on, I would say. So first, of course, we pledged for carbon and water neutrality by 2030, and I think we're moving towards that. The second is, if you look at globally our offices and our campuses, we have promoted sustainable practices. If an example, if I look at 2 of our campuses in Mysore and Baroda, they have water bodies within the campuses. Right? There are birds and ducks that are actually inhabiting in those campuses, and employees are actually growing vegetation. Right? So these are a few things that we feel are very important. Above all, we have a requirement to contribute close to 2% for contributions towards societal projects, right? And that's something that we do consciously, including measuring the impact towards society. So this is an ongoing journey. There's a lot that is being done. I believe there's a lot more that needs to be done. And I think at LTTS, we remain completely committed to make that happen.
Right. And I'm sure all of you will agree with me that the one constant towards making all of this happen is to bring about noticeable change when it comes to culture, innovation, and more importantly, investment itself, because a lot of this will need fuel to go about making it work. And Vanessa, let me come to you now. The fact is you have experienced an advanced engineering organization developing software for self-driving cars. How important do you feel cultural transformation is when it comes to influencing the success that digital engineering has for itself?
I think that, culture is important. Cultural transformation is important for any organization, but more so for digital companies.
Right.
I think if you look at the engineers, usually call them a strange breed. Because, first, they like to sit by themselves and just focus. So there's a tendency that they can easily be siloed and, from the rest of the company. So helping that culture to grow and help them to, have trust with the rest of the organization, I think that one is key. The other is the accountability, because you have the PI plannings if you're working agile ways of working. You have the PI planning and the retros. And I think to get everybody involved, I see a huge benefit in allowing ownership and accountability, especially if we're all driving towards the same goal, because that then helps the transparency and the trust with the teams. I think that, and change is never easy. So the openness and communication is really key.
But then the question also will be what strategies you feel organizations can implement to create that environment of inclusivity, which encourages diversity when it comes to technical roles.
Yeah. I hate the quota that we have to fit.
Okay.
But at the same time, I think that HR needs really focused hiring of the groups, the underrepresented groups. So that is one that needs to be, extra focus on that. But then you can also have the whole psychological safety net, for your employees. Because the truth be told, I mean, if you're looking at engineering organizations, they are really very male-dominated. That's the sad truth. That's why in Girls in Tech, we're trying to change that. But that's another story. So I think that, we need to have more open conversations, and whatever a company decides they want to do, whether it's lunches and bringing the diverse teams together, I think that is really important. And also equitable opportunities. If you are just moving from one art to the other, or if it's leadership opportunities, they should be open for all and not only a selected few.
Absolutely. But Steve, I can't quite help but ask you, given that the focus is on AI more so now than before, and that it's become one of the goals that most companies aspire to get to quicker than before, the question is, as Chief AI Officer, how do you see AI reshaping research and development landscape across industries? And are there industries that are adopting AI perhaps at a much faster pace than their peers could possibly keep up with?
Yeah, I'm going to go back just a second first, though, because I think we need the engineers and this community more than ever right now. And there's two big mega trends that are impacting us across the globe.
Right.
And it starts with sustainability. If you look at AI, the chip consumption, the energy consumption for that, I think we all know that the challenges with that. That's an engineering challenge that I fully believe will be solved, right? And that's critical that we do that. The other part on sustainability, though, if you go to the automotive sector, which is so critical to the industry, quite frankly, EVs are not selling. And the price of EVs aren't where they need to be to be able to be supported. So we have a massive engineering effort to sort that out, whether it's hybrid, whether it's EVs, whatever that means. It is something at corporate level we all need to invest in. But spending, 9 months out of the year in London, I see the impact across Europe on what it means to the political system in Germany and other areas. So the engineering on that is critical. Now, the positive side, we have seen so many great use cases in R&D on things as diverse as oil and gas, using sensors and big data, Gen AI to understand what's happening there, to consumer products. We're working with an organization right now that is, quite frankly, trying to figure out a better alternative to sugar, right? We all love our sugary drinks. We all want to drink healthy, but the fact of the matter is consumers love sugary drinks. So the healthy drinks really don't sell, even though we talk about it all the time, right? So how can I, as a consumer products company, create those nice sugary drinks that better optimize the supply chain for sugar? Because it's highly volatile. As India is a big source and is highly volatile.
Absolutely.
How do you find different fruits, other things that we love to consume that do that? That's actually an AI issue. How do we optimize the supply chain? How do we look at better alternatives? How can we learn from healthcare because of what we're doing with clinical trials and drugs to create those? So, the imagination is just wide open, which is why we love it. And it's just so much energy on what organizations can do. That's, certainly we have productivity, we have the software, we have AI ops, we have all of those things. But the real passion that I'm seeing at the corporate level is let me reimagine the business.
Absolutely.
Let me think of something new. And that's what we're seeing.
Now, I feel you, Steve, when you talk about sugar, it's something that I can't quite get over. Any innovation there is certainly welcome, no doubt about it. Exactly. But very quickly,
All addicted to it.
That's definitely good news. I'm not the only one. But Vanessa, I have to ask you again, just pivoting back to the environmental aspect itself, what lessons do you feel you've learned from driving innovation when it comes to high stakes engineering environments, and how can these be applied to the digital engineering process? Are there lessons that you've learned that can see real world applications?
Absolutely. I think, if we look at, if you all recall, we've been talking about failing fast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear that anymore. Because like you said, we're trying to do more with less. We're fewer people. I think there's a bit of stress on all of us to hurry up and go there where we're trying to, the goals we have. So I think, communicating that is really something that we need to be telling our teams.
Right.
But it's like what I talked about. I mean, if you have all these teams and you have the arts and helping them to get the accountability, because also for the whole CI/CD chain, they need to be talking to one another. So I think the collaboration is key, and the accountability. I think those are my biggest learnings, and also helping the diversity.
Right. In that case, Rajeev, going by the present day scenario as it presents itself, do you foresee a rise in R&D investments by LTTS, its customers? And, with your recent acquisition as well, how do you see this rise in funding available in the coming years, especially given the fact that we are still staring at a very uncertain economic climate?
So of course the panel did talk about, that today engineers are really, I will use the term engineering the transformation around technology and technology adoption. In a way, and I said this earlier, technology is truly augmenting human capability, right? And if you look at today, the consumer is asking for newer products and services, and with thrust on speed and convenience, right? The fact is today you're talking about communication through low orbit satellites, but you might talk about life on moon. So the point I'm going to make really is that it's important for companies to continue to invest in R&D, and it's important to stay relevant to your consumers and customers, without which really you will not be able to exist, right? So it's an imperative, and I believe it will continue to happen, right? Because that really helps you and becomes the guiding point for you in terms of what you will represent to your customer or to your consumer. You talked about availability of capital. I believe, in a way, capital follows wherever there are path-breaking ideas, and it's natural. And we've seen so many successes in the recent years where there's a disruption that has occurred, and there's a massive following that occurs around that disruption, right? So capital follows those, areas of business growth. Touching on our last point in terms of the acquisition that we made, clearly this was part of our strategy, where we thought that we want to augment our software product engineering capability.
Right.
And truly that sets the new page in the LTTS story, because it allows us to start servicing around product engineering and services, even in areas like retail, BFSI, and some of this, right? So some exciting times for us.
Right. And on that note, I have to ask the next question to Amit, because you talk about product innovation, you talk about development. The question is, what are, in your opinion, some of the key trends that you foresee when it comes to shaping new product development? And how will the emergence of AI really, Amit, and shortening technology cycles affect this adoption?
So if you go back, and I think Vanessa talked to it and Steve referred to it, Rajeev talked about it. See, there's a new consumer that's out there, A, and B, there's a new workforce out there. I will acknowledge and say that though I had my first computer before I got to the workforce, it was an Auric one which I would barely type on. I get to work, and the computer that I got from work was my first native application, etc. that I did. Now look at the workforce coming in right now. The workforce coming in right now is people that have already had a touch phone, most likely an iPhone, and I'm not propagating you buy an iPhone. As a touch phone, they do not go to a laptop to book a ticket. They actually do it on an app. They largely attend classes on a micro device while they're still in bed, because they can do it remotely.
Right.
And that's the workforce that's coming in right now. So what you will get is 2 or 3 things, and that's what you got to start thinking about, right? One, you're getting a workforce that's a lot more agile, a lot more adaptive, and leveraging, using technology is kind of intuitive to them.
Right.
You don't have to teach it to them, right? They know it.
Yep.
So with that said, products that are getting launched by our customers are largely products that are very intuitive, that actually can do an ecosystem play. So it's not important that you have a great speaker on your phone, because you know that you are gonna put it through a Bose, or you're gonna put it through your CarPlay or whatever. So it's an ecosystem play. So it should fit into the ecosystem. So product should be part of an ecosystem. Third, the product need not live forever and ever. This is not the washing machine my grandmother tried to buy or my mother tried to buy that still is there in our house and will not be, thrown for the next 10 years. This is stuff that is use and throw. I don't like it anymore. All I need is the shelf life of 3 to 5, 7, 10 years.
And that's perfectly okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I'm telling you, so coming back, you're looking at a consumer that wants a quick gratification, intuitive usage, fairly nimble, ecosystem friendly and sustainable, but at the same time has a shelf life that you can then replace it with.
Absolutely.
Second, what you will see is that intuitively the workforce coming in will not like to program millions of lines of code, but actually let ChatGPT or something, a third party, do it. And they'll just look at it and say yes. But most importantly, I'll tell you, and Vanessa covered part of this, and I will just say this, and it's not a trend, it's something that I've seen over the workforce. If I go to our people and say, I want you to come in on a Saturday and finish a project, they say, you know what, what's in it for me? But if I go back and say that our client is shipping out a medical device and it has to be perfect because people's lives depend on it, it gives them a purpose and they will work throughout the night to be able to deliver it. So I believe you're looking at purpose or purposeful, which is now part of our new brand. You're looking at agile, and then you're looking at innovation.
All right. A whole lot of relevance by adding these important criteria, no doubt.
Yes.
Asha, last word to you before we go in for closing remarks. So the need for digital innovation, how does it influence product development strategies in today's market? Is there a playbook of sorts when you talk about digital innovation and how it can influence product development strategies?
Yeah, so see, innovation is becoming digital. I would say that is the way it is. The primary difference that's happening is a reduction in time for anything to be done, be it code development, be it product development, be it solutioning. I think intuitively the expectation is that if you took 6 months to do something, now you do it in 3 months with less people, less resources, by really leveraging technology. That is kind of becoming the norm. When it comes to innovation, be it clinical trials, be it product development, the whole cycle time as well as the accuracy of your results, the expectation of what it provides as an outcome, with a lot of the factors that Amit just talked about, which is intuitive, it's plug and play, fits into the ecosystem. So that whole dynamic of what is the definition of innovation itself is changing. Okay. And digital is more like, I would say, a layer through it. And a lot of these are hard engineering solutions, not necessarily just Gen AI or things like that. So it's changing at a very foundational level. For example, today you could use Gen AI to write code that is going inside your core products, which we could never imagine. We would be worried it will fail. We would have to do 100 tests, So that's very acceptable. So that's how innovation is changing. And because of which you have the opportunity to fail a lot more because that one success is so powerful and it's so easily got.
So it's okay to fail and fail some more, all thanks to power of digital transformation. All right then, so final words before we wrap up. Let me maybe start with you, Rajeev. Key trends for the future. What is it looking like? And if there's something to look out for, what do you think it's going to be?
I think it's an interesting time, right? I mean, so much is happening at the moment, right? We heard Steve talk about, the global scenario. We of course heard Asha talk about a lot of digital part, right? And of course Amit touched upon, a lot of the new gen, right? In terms of how workforce will come in. And of course, Vanessa, and I really appreciate, I think, the quota part, etc. need not be emphasized. I think it has to come naturally. And I believe that's what we all need to imbibe, right? So imagine all that we've discussed already talks about so much that's exciting to come forward, right? I believe the generation that comes forward will carry a legacy which probably will give new highs. To me, trends around mobility, and mobility in every which way, right? Whether it's software-defined vehicles, how you travel, things will just propel from here on.
All right.
Things about data. I mean, usage of data is going to be just another level altogether, right? I mean, we've used only data to a certain extent. It's going to give you patterns that one never recognized about. So all in all, I think exciting times, looking forward to the future, and more importantly, passing this legacy to the new gen. And hopefully they don't work too much on nights and do so much on night day.
Vanessa, do you feel more women would be part of these new eyes?
Actually, I'm thinking there's one thing that we all didn't talk about. because we're talking about software, and that is the new, the generation or the way that we're going to be working. I think nobody touched on cybersecurity because that is a trend that is going to go, just zoom up, because working with code, understanding that when you cannot download code, that is in fact a robbery. How do we communicate that to your employees in the nicest way?
All right, that's something to look out for. Amit, one key trend to look out for in the future?
I think I already talked about industrial AI and all of that. I think I'll say two things. One, I definitely feel there's going to be a lot more focus coming in compute and storage, more than software potentially. And second, counter to that is software seems to be getting its own zip code.
And that is something that we'll all have to watch out for.
Yes, absolutely.
Steve, what are you looking out for? What are you looking out at with some hope for the future?
I would say agentic AI is the next big frontier. I mean, we've been on this journey since November 30th, 2022, and it's accelerated. Agentic AI was released in May, so we're just starting to learn. There are so much possibilities about linking LLMs with SLMs, with corporate data, and really driving a whole new way of how we think through the workflow. It's exciting.
All right. And Asha, last word to you.
Yeah, sure. See, I think this is going to be so much of everybody will have to play into an ecosystem. No one person can really win it, unlike in the past, right? So it's really, even your competitor, you have to be collaborating all the time. And it's really going to be about solving the hard problems. And everybody will have a role to play. And without everybody contributing, it's going to be that's the pace at which technology is going to move.
All right. Well, there you have it. Technology is moving faster than ever before, and there are some key trends to look out for, from agentic AI to the next gen taking over, and innovation really driving itself more faster than it has before, with digital engineering being that one layer that all these processes will be built upon. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, great speaking to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. I hope you enjoyed watching the very special programming along the sidelines of the Digital Engineering Awards, brought to you by ISG, L&T Technology Services, and CNBC TV. And thanks so much for watching.